Hey everyone, it's Cheryl from Teaching 2 and 3-year-olds. I've had quite a few readers ask if I could share some tips on how we get our children to move from one area of our preschool to another. And we have to do this every day because we move from our classroom to the gym and also to outside. So I thought I'd share some tips that we do starting on the very first day of school. The first thing to me that is a must is to have some sort of a rope with handles that the children can hold on to. This one that we have actually was made for us many years ago. And it's just simply a rope and it has handles on it. So what I do is I lay this rope outside of our classroom door. It's ready to go. I'm not going to wait till they're out there. I have it out there as I'm getting ready to call them to the rope. And then what I have is some sort of a prop to tap them on the head, excusing them to move from the circle time area to the rope that's in the hallway. My assistant teacher is out there waiting, so they're not just going into the hallway without any supervision. I do have a teacher out there. So she's waiting to help them, especially at the beginning of the year when they're really learning how this all works. So this is our classroom mascot for the year, and we've named him Barney. And so Barney will just walk around and tap each child's head. And the children know they have to be sitting up. They can't be laying down, they can't be standing, they have to be sitting. This can feel like a super tedious situation at the very beginning of the year. I know. You're thinking, oh, can we just skip this part? But please don't, because the more you do this, the easier it will get, I promise. So then, as I call them to the rope, they're going out and they're finding a handle and they're getting on. Then, something I started this year, our children were fascinated with trains. So we decided to pretend that the rope was a train. And I found some little props. So these are just some little engineer hats. They can wear it if they want to. I just keep the basket out by the rope, just kind of makes it a little bit more fun. To be honest, this was more interesting to them at the beginning of the year. They're not quite as interested now, but I keep it out, and there's still a few children who will put them on, and that's fine. But we always pretend this is a train. So here's the rules. When they're on the rope, they must be holding the handle at all times. If they let go, the train has to stop because the passengers have to stay on the train. And if somebody lets go, the train can't move anymore. So the train stops until the child gets back on the rope. And then, once all the children are back on the rope, we continue walking again. I've had the question of, what do you do with runners? First of all, at the beginning of the year, I start noticing who is having a harder time being on the rope, and I make sure those children are closer to a teacher. If a child runs, the whole train has to stop while a teacher goes and gets that child and brings him back. The child at that point has lost his privilege to be able to be on the train. Bummer. So he has to hold the teacher's hand the rest of the way to where we're going. When we get to that destination, we sit down in front of the door, let's say it's going to the gym, and once again we go through the same thing where Barney has to tap each child's head and then they can go into the gym. When we're getting ready to move back to our classroom, the child who ran, the runner, I will say, are you ready to hold on to the rope this time? And then they can decide, and we try it again. It's a real privilege to be able to be on the train, and they know that. If a child just seems to really have a hard time, then the teacher's going to have to hold their hand for a few days, however long, until we feel that they are ready to try the rope. And then we don't just put that child on the rope. The child's holding onto the rope, but there's a teacher holding onto the same handle with the child. So when we get to our classroom door from the gym, it's the same situation again. The children have to sit first before we come into the classroom. And then when they're sitting outside the door, once again, Barney taps each of their heads and they come in and we go back to the circle time area. So it really is a work in progress. And the other thing I want to stress for our 2-year-olds is, while we are working on keeping the line straight, realistically, it just very rarely happens. And I don't make a big deal about it. And in the videos that I show after this, the clips that I show the children, you will see that they're kind of a little all over the place. Those videos were taken towards the beginning of the year, when my goal at that point was simply to teach them how to hold onto the rope. And then as the year progressed, we started talking about who's ahead of you. You need to be behind that person. But again, I don't stress too much on it. Mostly what I'm working on is being able to use walking feet, not running, holding onto the rope, not letting go, and not dropping the rope and running ahead of the group. Those are what I'm working on. One more thing is a quiet voice. Our preschool resides in a church, and there are often meetings that are taking place right along the hallway that we walk in, and I want to be respectful of that, and I also want the children to be. So I will tell the children, oh, there's a meeting inside that room. Let's be really, really quiet. Let's put the train into quiet mode. We're going to be a silent train. And another thing that we like to do is we like to sing songs as we go to and from. That kind of keeps the children distracted, and they're singing, and as we're moving, Little Red Caboose is one of their favorite, and who is ever the caboose of the line gets to tell us what color. Little pink caboose, little red caboose, little black caboose, etc. So it's really, I don't have a whole lot of rules, those are them. But I can't stress enough, like with everything else in teaching this age group, consistency is the key. You can't slack. You can't decide one day, forget it, I'm not dealing with that. I don't care if they hold the rope. It's okay. No, you must follow the same routine each and every day, because it will become habit. And then they'll just know, as our children do now, that when their head is tapped, and their name is called, they go to the rope. So I hope this has helped. And if you can share what works for your class, how do you get your children to walk from point A to point B, please share in the comments. Thanks for watching.